When the All-Star teams were revealed, we were disappointed that Brandon Ingram was not on the roster. Disappointed, but at least from my perspective, it made sense. It's very difficult to make an All-Star team. The Raptors already had an All-Star with Scottie Barnes, and none of the players that were selected for the All-Star team felt like they were undeserving. It didn't feel like anybody was taking Brandon Ingram's spot that they didn't deserve. It felt like everyone there deserved it. But there was always an opportunity potentially for a player to sneak in as an injury reserve. But I still felt like even as an injury reserve, Michael Porter Jr. had a better shot than Brandon Ingram. But as it turns out, that wasn't the case. Brandon Ingram has been named an All-Star for the 2025-2026 season. Let's break down exactly why he was deserving of this position. And also, let's just go through the impact he's made on Toronto in the year that he has been with the organization. Kind of surprised. Like I said, I was expecting Michael Porter Jr. to be named the All-Star replacement, as we saw with Pascal Siakam making the team. Look, I think there was a case there for Brandon Ingram, but at the end of the day, Pascal Siakam represents Team World that needed additional Team World players, hence why the Indiana Pacers, with the worst record in the East, had an NBA All-Star. It became a little bit more difficult for them to find enough players to fit the Team World format that we have for this year's event. But if an American player was to be unable to play, it still felt to me like that would go to Michael Porter Jr., especially with the precedent that doesn't really matter what your record is to get into the All-Star game. But when it comes to injury replacements for the All-Star game, the selection process for All-Stars is as so. For the starters, it is a mixture of fan vote and I believe it's player vote. For the All-Star reserves, so the bench, it is strictly... The starters are picked by media and... I believe it's media and fans. It's some combination of either fans and media or fans. I'm pretty fans and media. Anyways, All-Star reserves, so the players coming off the bench, are exclusively selected by NBA head coaches. Coaches cannot vote for players in their own team, if you care to know. Injury replacements are handpicked specifically by Adam Silver. And now this is the second time. We gotta give Adam Silver some credit here as Raptors fans, because this is the second time a Raptors player has made it to the NBA All-Star game as an injury replacement selected by Adam Silver. For Scottie Barnes' first All-Star appearance, he was selected as an injury replacement, like I said, by Adam Silver. And now we have Brandon Ingram joining the fray as well, and I'm so happy for him. I said earlier that it wasn't like any of the players were undeserving of their position, and Brandon Ingram should have gotten in ahead of them. But it did feel like Brandon Ingram had played like an All-Star. He was operating as an All-Star caliber player this season, and he also deserved to get into the All-Star game. So I'm so happy that he's been rewarded with that. He's been a very, very quality player throughout his NBA career. He's had, honestly, I think he's gone a little bit underrated in the past because he's playing with the Pelicans, not in a big market, a Pelicans team that never achieved what they maybe had the potential to do and struggled for a lot of the years that he was there. But the Raptors are 32-22. They're fifth in the East. Brandon Ingram has played like an All-Star, and damn it, he deserves to be there, and I'm super happy for him. I'm super happy, but my goodness, I am not as happy as Darko Rajakovic was with this news. Let's take a look at the video of the Raptors team reacting to the news. So obviously, they're pumped for him. I mean, you can really see how much Darko Rajakovic cares for his players, likes his players, and supports his players. Like, when it was revealed that Brandon wasn't an All-Star, Darko Rajakovic was mic'd up and was like, super apologetic and was, felt bad for him, essentially. So happy to see that sort of reception, and very, very happy to see how much the players are just happy for their teammate like that. But I kind of wanted to take it, in a bit of a different direction here as well, because we can go through the stats here. We can talk about how good Brandon Ingram has been. He has been excellent for the Raptors this season. He has really taken to this role here where he's not necessarily the focal point as he's been previously. He's had to do more as a defensive player. He's had to maybe take a little bit less of the ball than he'd be used to doing, perhaps. He's still getting his reps, he's still getting his touches, but he's playing within a team environment, I think, a little bit more than he was doing with the Pelicans. And taking it in stride, like coming off of an injury, and it looks like he has not at all missed a beat from that. 22 points per game this season, 47% for the field, 36% from three on 5 threes a game, 5.8 rebounds, 3.7 assists, true shooting percentage of 56.8. Everything has been good here for Brandon Ingram. And again, second All-Star appearance. It feels like he's been due an All-Star appearance, so happy does get it with Toronto. But let's zoom out a little bit, because this was a trade the Raptors made a year ago. They brought in Brandon Ingram on an expiring contract, who was injured. The Raptors were in, a tough position where they were likely tanking for the rest of the season. There was an element of risk to it. Like, the Raptors didn't give away much as far as the trade is concerned, but there was an element of risk to the trade that the Raptors made. Yet still, they wanted to go with it. They wanted to bring in this player. They thought that they were getting such a good deal that they wanted to bring him in, and it has worked absolutely tremendously. And I kind of want to go back all the way to the time the Raptors traded for him and hear the thoughts of Brandon Ingram and what his thoughts were at the time. Here's a video that I pulled from Omar Osman, at Omar Osman 200, good aggregator Raptors information on Twitter. This is from, we're doing this live stream here, February 11th, 2026. This is almost a year ago to the day. Here's what Brandon Ingram had to say.
What have you heard about how the Raptors are hoping to adjust your play as you, I guess, over the next few years here?
Well, the first thing that I heard is, they want to make me an All-Star again. I'm going to be a big part of, what they do going forward. And I just want to, I want to come here and learn. I want to come here and be a sponge, shift the culture, make it a winning culture, and come in and just listen. Do whatever coach needs me to do, and go out and try to be an example every single day.
So players will often talk like this when they get traded for. They'll say they'll do what they need to do for the team. They'll do what the coach asked of them. It's not always the case of the player actually doing that for a team. We don't always see the player actually doing that. But it's been very, very obvious since Brandon Ingram has arrived that, yes, he has, in fact, done just that. And he kind of echoes that sort of mindset with what he said in a recent interview after being named an NBA All-Star. I also pulled this video from Omar Osman just to give him credit here. But let's listen in on this one.
I remember when Bobby was introducing you when you first came to the trade a year ago. One of his goals was they're going to make you an All-Star again. Yeah. So now you're here. How do you feel about that whole decision, coming to Toronto and now being in this league?
I love the decision of coming to Toronto.
Still needs to work on his pronunciation of Toronto, but that's okay.
Expanded my game more, especially on the defensive end. Darko been holding me accountable to be better. On-ball defense, out-ball defense, and using my length.
These captions are all over the place. They're very off.
And on the offensive end, I've just been able to be efficient. I've been able to show what I can do, and I think I'm evolving and trying to do even more. And I think I'll be able to do that in the second half of the season. But getting All-Star today is an amazing accomplishment. To God be the glory.
So again, not that he's showing it. He's obviously quite happy that he's been named as an NBA All-Star, but I don't think we give enough credit to Brandon Ingram for truly buying into what the Raptors are doing here. The offensive style, sometimes I don't love this style, but it's very, very socialist. Everyone gets their fair share on the offense when it comes to the ball. Maybe a little bit too much in late game situations where okay, it's time to just put the ball in Brandon Ingram and Scottie Barnes' hands. But still, he has taken to this offensive style. He has been that mid-range bucket getter, the guy who can create his own shot and score in tough situations. He's been that sort of player that we've been craving on this team for a long while. And concerns about his defense have they're seemingly gone. Like, he has seriously bought into the defensive mindset. And all the while he's been with the Raptors, I feel like he has only said the right things in interviews and in press conferences about how, this is a team, and he's willing to do his part for the team, and he's willing to do what needs to be done for the Raptors to find the most success on the court and help instill a winning culture within the team. So really here, like, we've got 2 All-Stars, and it just absolutely feels like this is a team on the rise. People were upset at the trade deadline this year that the Raptors didn't go out and make a winning move, didn't go out and make an aggressive move. Like this is a really quick turnaround. This was a Raptors team that a year ago brought in Brandon Ingram, sat on the rest of the season, and tanked the rest away. This is now 1 year later a Raptors team that is making a serious run at potentially getting a top 4 seed and a home seed for the first round of the NBA playoffs. Now, the goal should be to stay in the top 6. The East round got a little bit stronger, but it's easy to lose sight of like what we're still looking to achieve with this team. We have a young core, a great group of players that are on the rise, and a big reason why it's a great group of players that's on the rise is because Brandon Ingram is here. Looking back 1 year later, wow, what a trade for the Raptors. They gave away what seemed to be a not-so-great first-round pick, which has turned into a good one outside of our control at this point. Anyways, what was supposed to be a not-so-great first-round pick and dumped salary and got Brandon Ingram. What a trade that was by this Raptors front office.